Imagine this. You're driving home late one night. The road is empty, the sky is quiet. Until a blinding flash of light streaks across the horizon. You pull over, get out of your car, and see something hovering in the distance. It's metallic, silent, and completely impossible. You shake your head, telling yourself you just imagined it. But the next morning, two men in perfect black suits knock on your door. They know your name. They know where you were last night, and they know exactly what you saw. In a calm, cold voice, they tell you to forget everything. This isn't a scene from a movie. This is the origin story of one of the most chilling modern legends, the Men in Black. And no, I'm not talking about the Hollywood heroes with their flashy gadgets. I'm talking about the real, shadowy figures who have been stalking UFO witnesses for nearly a century. Today, we're going deep into how the Men in Black legend truly began, and why, even now, people are still afraid of them. Stick with me because the deeper we go, the stranger this story gets. The story of the Men in Black doesn't start in Hollywood. It starts back in 1947, the year UFO sightings exploded across the United States. One of the earliest and most disturbing cases involved a man named Harold Dahl. He claimed he saw 6 strange donut-shaped objects flying near Maury Island in Washington. The very next day, a man in a crisp black suit approached him. This stranger wasn't threatening in the usual way. He was calm, almost too calm. He knew details about the sighting that Dahl had never told anyone. He warned Dahl not to talk about what he saw, hinting that bad things might happen if he did. Dahl later said the man felt wrong, not just intimidating, but unnatural, like he was an actor reciting lines he didn't quite understand. This wasn't a one-off event. It was the beginning of a terrifying pattern. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, a strange thing started happening. People who reported UFO sightings began describing the exact same eerie encounters. They all mentioned men in identical black suits, with emotionless faces and robotic, monotone voices. Their movements seemed rehearsed, stiff, and most unnervingly, they knew things they had no way of knowing. Their mission was always the same: to silence anyone who saw too much. Some witnesses said these men looked human, but not quite. Their skin was too smooth, their eyes didn't blink normally, and their smiles were stiff, forced, like they were imitating human expressions they'd only read about. One witness even said their skin looked like plastic, as if a mannequin had suddenly learned how to walk and talk. These weren't just government agents. At least not any kind we know. Then, in 1956, a writer named Gray Barker published a book that changed everything. They knew too much about flying saucers. This was the first time the term Men in Black was ever used in print. Barker had collected dozens of witness accounts and noticed a chilling connection. Whenever someone had a credible UFO sighting, the Men in Black would almost certainly follow. He proposed they were part of a vast secret organization dedicated to hiding the truth about extraterrestrial life. His book was a massive hit and cemented the Men in Black as a real-world mystery. But here's where the story gets complicated. Years later, Barker admitted he had exaggerated some of the stories for dramatic effect. But the witnesses he interviewed stuck to their guns, insisting their encounters were absolutely real. So what was Barker really doing? Was he exposing a hidden truth, or was he deliberately burying it under a layer of fiction so that no one would take it seriously? Some researchers believe Barker was pressured to muddy the waters, to make the truth seem like nothing more than cheap entertainment. If there's one story that truly defines the Men in Black legend, it's the case of Albert K. Bender. Bender was a respected UFO researcher who ran a small magazine called Space Review. In 1953, he suddenly shut it down. No warning, no explanation, just radio silence. Months later, he finally revealed why. He claimed he had been visited by 3 men in black, but they didn't knock on his door. He said they materialized right inside his room. He described them as wearing black suits, having glowing eyes, and communicating with him telepathically. They filled his mind with an overwhelming sense of dread and smelled of sulfur. They weren't entirely human. Bender said they revealed to him the truth about UFOs, a truth so terrifying that he refused to ever speak of it again. His story became the backbone of the entire Men in Black mythos. And keep in mind, Bender was known as a rational, grounded man, not someone seeking attention. So what did he really see that day? This leads us to the big question: who or what are the Men in Black? There are 3 major theories. Theory 1. They're secret government agents. This would explain their access to personal data, their intimidating behavior, and their ability to show up so quickly after a sighting. But it doesn't explain all the bizarre, inhuman details that so many witnesses describe. Theory 2. They're extraterrestrials in disguise. This theory suggests the men in black are aliens trying to mimic humans, but they're just not very good at it. This would explain their robotic speech, their strange, awkward movements, their plastic skin, and their apparent confusion over simple human customs. Some witnesses said the Meebs seemed puzzled by basic things like food or using a pen. And then there's Theory 3, the wildest one of all, but also the one that fits the strangest reports. Some researchers believe the men in black aren't from our world or even from outer space, but from a parallel dimension. They appear when the boundary between our worlds is disturbed, like during a UFO sighting. This would explain how they seem to materialize out of thin air, why they know things they shouldn't, and how they vanish without a trace. You might think these stories faded away with time, but they didn't. In the 2000s, security footage from a hotel in Niagara Falls went viral. It showed two tall men in identical black suits entering the lobby. They were the same height, had the same build, and even moved in perfect sync. Witnesses said they had no eyebrows, no facial hair, and spoke in unison. The hotel staff reported that the men were asking about a guest who had seen a UFO the night before. Was this video proof of the real men in black? The footage is still debated to this day. The legend didn't fade. It just evolved for the modern era. Then, in 1997, Hollywood stepped in. The movie Men in Black turned the phenomenon into a global pop culture sensation. But here's the most important part. The movie didn't create the legend. The legend inspired the movie. Hollywood took the genuine fear and mystery surrounding the real EMEB and transformed it into action and comedy. But the core idea, a secret organization monitoring alien activity, came directly from decades of real witness reports. And what happened after the movie came out? The sightings didn't stop. They actually increased. Some researchers believe the movie served as the perfect cover story, making the real phenomenon seem like nothing more than fiction. So why do people still believe in the Men in Black today? Because the stories have never stopped. Even now, UFO witnesses report being followed by unmarked black cars, being questioned by men with emotionless faces, and receiving cryptic warnings to forget what you saw. And now that governments around the world are openly admitting that UFOs or UAPs are real and unexplained, the idea of the Men in Black feels less like fiction and more like a missing piece of a much larger puzzle. The more we learn about UFOs, the more the Men in Black almost start to make a strange kind of sense. Of course, there's a psychological angle. Some argue that the Men in Black are just a manifestation of our collective fear, a way for our minds to process the unknown. But that explanation starts to fall apart when you consider the multiple, independent witnesses describing identical details, often before the legend was even widely known. How could a shared hallucination be so perfectly coordinated across decades and continents? So, how did the Men in Black legend really appear? The truth is likely a blend of real history, intense secrecy, and the genuinely unknown. They appeared because people saw things they couldn't explain. Because strange men really did visit those witnesses. Because writers like Gray Barker connected the dots, and because the government's official silence created a vacuum that the mystery was all too happy to fill. The Men in Black are like a mirror, reflecting our deepest fears of the unknown and our suspicion that someone, somewhere, knows far more than they're telling us. So the next time you see something strange in the sky, the next time you hear a story that sounds too bizarre to be true, just remember, the Men in Black didn't start as a movie. They started as a warning. And according to some, they're still out there. Thanks for watching. If you found this dive into the unknown as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time.